Hi, and welcome to my channel. And for those of you who don't know me, I've been working in political persuasive marketing for over 2 decades now. I write a lot of the stuff that news organizations print and repeat, and I write a lot of stuff that the president and other politicians repeat in order to manipulate the general audience into thinking something that isn't true. In this segment that I call Cheat or Chump, I'll watch somebody, usually a political figure, making political claims, and I will try to tell you whether I think that person is trying to manipulate you by giving you incorrect information or has fallen for incorrect information themselves and is merely a victim. Okay, let's get started. Today, we're going to check out Trump's June 7th, 2026 Meet the Press interview, or as many people like to call it, the Tantrum interview.
Venezuela's doing very well, but we lost nobody. We've lost 13 people here, and that's a lot. 13 people too many. But if you look at Vietnam, where hundreds of thousands of people were killed, if you look at any one of the last 7 or 8 wars where many, many people were killed, we lost 13. And again, 13 is too many. I don't want to lose any. But 13 is less than anybody's ever even envisioned.
All right, I just have to mention here, because this is really weird, right? He's commander-in-chief of the U.S. military. And all right, it's fine if he doesn't know these things, but hundreds of thousands of Americans were killed in the Vietnam War. I wasn't even around for the Vietnam War, and I know it's not that many. Like, it's, I think, less than 60,000. And you would think that he would research this stuff, or at least do what he did for the next ones that he wasn't sure of, where he just said many, many. Why not just say many, many? It's not a good look when he's off so dramatically over things that I think most Americans consider general knowledge about the country they live in. I'm going to break these down all separately because he makes a lot of claims, and sometimes I think he's a cheat, and sometimes I think he's a chump. In this case, I think he's a chump. I just don't think he knows that much about U.S. history.
I think we're doing a great job.
But so are you saying you would consider sending some of the troops home, sir? Some of the 50,000 troops who were sent there as a part of Operation Epic Fury?
I would say this, it costs us very little to keep them there.
Yikes. It doesn't cost much to have them there. It costs about $42 million an hour to have those people there, $1 billion a day. So, I mean, maybe that's not a lot of money to him, $41 million an hour to have them there. But I think the average American sees $41 million an hour being spent in U.S. tax dollars and not consider that very little amount of taxpayer dollars being spent. In this case, though, I think he probably has no idea how much it costs. I do think that he probably thinks $1 billion a day of taxpayer money is almost nothing. The guy has a history of just losing billions and billions of dollars. But I do think in this case, he probably has no idea how much money is being spent. So I'm going to call this one a chump.
I don't consider them in danger. We have the best defense anyone's ever seen. We have the best offense anyone's ever seen. So I don't consider it danger. I would say it would be foolhardy to do that because maybe we may use them. It's unlikely, but I think we'll keep them there until such time as we have a completion. And when we have a completion, you will see things like you've never seen. The oil will go down. The stock market already, as you know, it's hit an all-time high. Even in the midst of it, it hit all-time highs. We had 73 all-time highs in a short period of time that I've been in office.
This is somewhat factual, although misleading. The deal is, like, when the stock market goes up and it breaks a record, every second it's breaking another record if it's higher than it was the second before. So you can count every time it goes up higher than it's ever been higher as another count of it going higher. But he does sometimes say, he said 73 this time, he said over 100 before, he said over 150 before, he's even said over 300 before. So in this case, he's definitely trying to cheat. He's purposely trying to mislead the viewer.
Okay. You have been saying for months, Mr. President, that Iran is begging to make a deal.
True.
If they are so desperate to make a deal, why haven't they made a deal with you yet?
Because it's a very hard thing for them. They've had great independence. They've dealt with very weak and ineffective leadership on behalf of the United States and other countries, frankly, that allowed them to get away with murder.
This is what's known as externalization of blame. It's when you try to blame other people for your shortcomings, like his failures at getting them to come to the table now are the result of the United States being a weak country. First off, I think it's very poor taste for the president of the United States to continually talk about how weak the United States is as a nation until just now, as if we've always been this weak and feeble nation until he took over. I get what he's doing. He's trying to talk himself up, but at the same time, he's putting the U.S. down forever, like saying that we were always a weak and powerless nation. But in this case, he's trying to make excuses for his shortcomings. So in this case, he's being a cheat.
And I think they can't believe they're in the situation where they've been virtually decapitated.
But if they're so desperate, Mr. President, why haven't they said yes to the terms you're proposing?
Strong, they're proud. There are things they never thought they'd be doing that they're going to have to do. They've got no choice. And it takes a little while. You're talking about 47 years of getting away with whatever they wanted. I mean, this should have been done long ago. This should have been done by other presidents or other countries. It doesn't have to be us, other countries. But they were very close to having a nuclear weapon twice. That was when I terminated the Iran nuclear deal, which was a path.
Well, there he goes again, saying that the United States has been weak for at least 47 years. But I'm sure he means further back than that. As far as that, Iran was not close to making a nuclear weapon at all. And we have videos on that. And this is just well-known information anyway. They were, when Obama went in, he put a completely stopped their development of nuclear bombs. And Trump came in and told them they could start developing nuclear weapons again. Like, he literally told them that he was releasing them from this agreement and gave them permission to start developing nuclear weapons. And at this point, they have enough material to make between 5 and 10 nuclear bombs. But it's 100% because Trump, in his last term, released them and told them that they could go ahead and start making nuclear weapons if they wanted to. So he's completely lying here. He knows he's completely lying. This is a very, very easy one for anybody to research. Here, he's being a cheat.
That deal, the JCPOA, that deal was tantamount to giving them a nuclear weapon. It was a horrible deal given by Barack Obama. And really penned by him. It was a horrible deal. It was, it expired long ago. I terminated it. But had I not terminated it, it expired long ago. It was a short-term deal.
This one's very disturbing and confusing because I don't know if he doesn't understand. They weren't close to anything. Under the Obama deal, they could enrich uranium to like 3.67%. You need 90% to get to weapons grade. So saying that 3.67% was close to 90% is just, it's wild that he says something like that. It makes him look really, really ignorant. And then he goes back and forth. He says that the deal had expired, but then he also said that he terminated it. He's right. He did terminate it. That's what I told you. They weren't allowed to enrich past 3.67%. He terminated it and told them that they could enrich to as high as they wanted to enrich. And then they started enriching to higher levels because he gave them permission to that. But him saying that it terminated, that it expires in it would have expired in 2030. So he's saying 2030 was a very long time ago and that it's already past 2030 and it had already expired, but then he terminated it. And if he hadn't terminated it, it would have expired a long time ago. Like, none of that makes any sense. So he's coming across as very ignorant here. Which is disheartening to see that, especially from a president. But I suspect that he knows it expired in 2030 and he's trying to tell people either he thinks 2030 was a long time ago and he thinks 3.6% enrichment is very close to 90%, or he's completely lying in order to manipulate the people that he knows won't look any of this stuff up. So I'm going to call him a cheat on this part.
It was a road to a nuclear weapon. They would have had a nuclear weapon 5 years ago.
But, Mr. President, I'm curious because when you were campaigning, you said you would rip up the Iran nuclear deal, but negotiate a better deal.
That's
Why
what I'm
didn't you
doing.
negotiate a better deal at the time? Because after it was ripped
It
up,
doesn't go
there
that
weren't
fast.
guardrails, and they escalated their
Excuse
production
me.
of enriched uranium.
Excuse me. It takes years to do these things. These people have been fighting for 47 years. They've been killing Americans. They've been taking off their legs and their arm, and their faces have been hurt so badly and so horribly. I'm moving very fast. I'm into 3 months. You know, Vietnam lasted 19 years. I'm into my 3rd month, and all I do is say, whoa, when are you going to end?
This is just a weird thing that he's doing here because he's saying there wasn't enough time in the first 4 years that he was president because it takes so long to get these things done. Then he said that Biden should have had it done easily within the same amount of time that Trump had, where he said he didn't have enough time to do it. And now he's saying that he's got it done in 3 months. So that really means that he had plenty of time to do it the first time. And so he's definitely just trying to say whatever he can come up with to make excuses for his past failures. So he's definitely trying to be a cheat here, for sure. That one's pretty obvious, though.
That means we'll be friendly. We'll do it with the Iranians. If we don't make a deal, we may do it or we may just watch it. You know, we have cameras on it all over it. If anybody walked there, if you walked over there, I would be able to read your first name on your lapel. And these are cameras up in space. It's pretty amazing technology. Space Force. We have cameras all over the site.
This one's really wild. Does he really think that there are spy satellites they can see still, like from a movie? I don't know if he doesn't ask people or if he just watches movies and assumes that that's real, but this is not true at all. And before anybody out there says, you don't know what the technology is, it doesn't have anything to do with that. Physics doesn't allow this. It's physically impossible to make a spy satellite that could do what he's saying. First off, these things move at 17,000 miles an hour. So to take a picture that quickly, you would need a longer or a very short exposure time. Also, they're only like hundreds of miles away. You would need a mirror larger than anything. I mean, if there was a spy satellite that had that higher resolution, you'd be able to spot it with the naked eye. It would be like the size of the ISS. Like, you'd be talking about something massively gigantic. And even if you had something that big, physics still wouldn't allow this to work. Again, it's traveling way too fast to get that kind of resolution in that short period of time. And there's the atmosphere and dust and everything else for the same reason when stars twinkle because of that blurriness of the atmosphere. So you'd have to somehow remove all of the atmosphere off of Earth. You'd have to have a satellite larger than the International Space Station, and you'd have to have it traveling at like 1 mile an hour and somehow still in orbit. So it's physically impossible. The laws of physics would not allow it. It has nothing to do with technology. In this case, I think he's a chump. I think he watches movies and thinks that that's the type of technology the U.S. has and has never bothered to ask anybody who knows what they're talking about.
We know if anybody goes there, if anybody went there, any digging mechanism, any truck, any tractors, anything, anybody went there, we would know. We will take care of it. Is that wind or what?
Is that rain?
What is that?
This would be the first of multiple interruptions due to the weather. Rain hitting the metal roof, making it difficult for both of us to hear each other.
So as we're having this conversation, we can hear a little bit of rain.
No, a lot of rain.
A lot of rain. Let me try to get a clear understanding of how the United States would get the nuclear material out. You've called it nuclear dust.
Yeah.
Will you and would you be open to sending in U.S. forces to retrieve the nuclear stockpile?
So the official name is highly enriched uranium. And I call it nuclear dust because it seemed to be nice and everyone understands it better and it's sort of cute and people picked it up. But the way you do it is if we make a deal, now we're friendly, we'll all go together, it'll be our equipment, we'll take it out and destroy it, whether it's on site or whether we take it off site.
So that would require U.S. forces?
Well, that will require, we will have a deal. We'll be friendly. In other words, we will have made a deal. And we will be at peace. And we will go with them or without them, but we won't have people shooting at us, okay? Now, if we don't make a deal, then we're going to take them out militarily, very harshly, and we'll wait till we do that before we go, in which case we'll have safety either way.
Mr. President, I wonder, how long are you willing to give Iran to make a deal? How much longer? You've been talking for quite some time.
Well, you really haven't. You were in Vietnam for 19 years. You were in Iraq for many years. You were in Korea for many, many years. You were in all the, I won't even talk about World War II, because that was the big one, and we don't want to ever have that. But you were in all these different wars for many years.
Okay, I have to stop it here for a second because this is interesting. Notice how he's saying you were in all these wars. You had Vietnam for this long. He's not talking to her because she's younger than him. So it wouldn't be like if a young person said it to an older person who lived through it. He's saying you as if she's an American citizen and he is not. And the reason why this is very telling is because when people talk, especially people who have been brainwashed or manipulated, you can pick up on how they say things to tell whether it's their words or not. And the fact that he's saying you were in Vietnam and you were in this war, that means that he's repeating something someone was saying to him. And the only person who would be saying that to him where they would say you is somebody from another country, right? Like if you were talking to a German, they would say when you guys were in Vietnam, right? So he's saying when you were in Vietnam, that really triggers me to think that he's repeating what someone said to him and that someone had to be a non-American, and that's why they were using the word you. And now he's just repeating what he was told, and he's using the same pronoun. He's using the pronoun that someone who wasn't an American would be using. I just find that interesting, and I'm going to pay more attention to what he's saying because that's definitely a red flag.
Do you know where all of Iran's nuclear material is,
Yes.
sir?
Yes.
Would you unfreeze any Iranian assets or lift any sanctions up front as a part of any deal? So that would come after.
Comes after, yeah. If
they
behave,
turned
if they do
over
a good
their
job, we
nuclear
start
enrichment
talking, yeah.
material.
Unlike Obama. Obama flew a Boeing 757, a plane I know very well. They took the seats out and they loaded it up with $1.7 billion in cash from the banks in Maryland and Virginia and D.C. They emptied out the banks, and they gave them 1.7 in green, and they gave them tens of billions of dollars, just kept giving them money, and it didn't work.
This one's very wild to me. I mean, he's 100% lying here. First off, the money that Obama sent to them had nothing to do with the arms deal at all. The $1.7 billion was not part of the nuclear deal at all. It was a legal settlement that the U.S. lost in international court. Iran had taken the United States to court. There's a longer story behind why they did that, and I have a video that covers that. And in international court, the U.S. was required to give Iran this money because the U.S. had essentially stolen it from them, like in the 1970s. And it was their money. They paid the United States for some weapons, and the U.S. never delivered the weapons and then never gave them the money back. And there was an international court case, and the U.S. was required to pay this. So whoever was president would have to have paid this. It had nothing to do with the nuclear deal. But on top of that, it's 100% incorrect. It was $400 million that was on the plane that was given in cash. The $1.3 billion was interest owed in some other type of way, but it was $400 million in cash. And this is all public information because it was a court case that the U.S. had to fulfill. So $400 million. In this case, though, I'm going to say Trump is a chump because the $1.7 billion story that he's telling is a well-known piece of propaganda. So he must have read this probably on like social media. He saw a meme and he's just repeating what he read in a meme. So he didn't ask anybody if this was true. He didn't bother to look it up, or he would have immediately. I mean, any of you look it up. It was $400 million. It wasn't part of the nuclear deal. He's repeating something he probably saw on Twitter. So he's a chump. Somebody manipulated him and he fell for it.
I'd like to talk big picture now, Mr. President. One of your consistent campaign promises was no new wars, going all the way back to 2015. Did you break that promise to the American people?
No. I had to stop a country, very powerful, very dangerous country, from having a nuclear weapon because they'd use it. They'd blow up the world. They'd blow up the Middle East. They'd blow up Israel. They'd come here. They'd blow up Europe. They're nuts, okay? They're crazy people. I deal with them. And very high-strung people, really crazy. And get along with them. I like them. But you don't want to let them have a nuclear weapon.
This is full-on fear-mongering. They were nowhere, before he got rid of the deal, they were nowhere near even close to being able to make a nuclear weapon, nor is it, they'd be no danger to the United States even if they had a nuclear weapon. First off, his lack of understanding of nuclear weapons is terrifying. Because a single nuclear weapon isn't all that. I mean, you obviously don't want one going off near you, but it's not going to destroy an entire country or anything like that. There have been thousands and thousands of nuclear bombs detonated. Yeah, they're big, but they're not. It's not like a nuclear bomb could destroy an entire country. It can't do much. I mean, you would need thousands and thousands and thousands of them in order to destroy a country. So he's claiming that, like, if they had one nuclear bomb, they could destroy the world. That's 100% fear-mongering. But I also think that maybe he doesn't understand what a nuclear bomb is. But more importantly, they'd be no threat to the United States. The very most difficult thing about building nuclear weapons is building the missiles that can reach that far. Yeah, if I were Israel, I'd be worried if they got a nuclear bomb because they could probably get a missile that could go that far and it could do a lot of damage. But there's no way they could come up with a missile that could hit the United States. The technology is far beyond what they would be able to do. Not to mention the fact that if they only had like one or two missiles, we could easily shoot that down. So the U.S. is not in any danger in the slightest in this case. He's 100% just fear-mongering there. I'm going to say he's a chump in one way, that he does not understand nuclear weapons at all. And he's a cheat in the fact that he's definitely trying to make people more afraid of something than they need to be.
I have to do this country, this world, the Middle East, Israel, everybody a favor. You have Iran. They're going to have a nuclear weapon. Barack Hussein Obama signed the JCPOA. It was a horrible deal. Horrible deal. Listen to me. It was a horrible deal. It was a path to them getting a nuclear weapon. They were very close to having a nuclear weapon. I terminated the deal. Wait.
Again, I don't understand how he thinks 3% enriched uranium is close to the 90% required for a nuclear bomb. And when he terminated this during Trump's presidency, they started at 3.67% enrichment, which is what they had for the entire time under Obama. And for the first year under Trump, that's what it was at. Trump terminated this agreement, and by the end of his term, they were up to 60% enrichment because he told them they could enrich higher. Now, 60% is close to 90%. So he's completely lying in this case. Like, he's just hoping that no one's going to look this information up. But the reason why we know that Iran had a 60% enrichment is because they told everybody. They weren't hiding it. Other nations were going in and looking at what they were doing. They were keeping it at 3.67%. Trump said, no, you guys can enrich it to whatever you want. How does he think that 3.67% is close, but allowing them to get to 60% is less close? I mean, he'd have to be the dumbest person in the world, or he's hoping that his followers are the dumbest people in the world.
Obama was a path to a nuclear weapon. Mine is the exact opposite. And mine is a wall. It's a wall, just like I built 1,000 miles of wall on our southern border. And by the way, I took the worst border in history and I made it the best border in history in a matter of weeks.
I mean, we've got a video on that too, but Trump actually had the second weakest border in U.S. history, or at least in modern U.S. history. We had much, much stronger borders under presidents before and after Trump. We have a video on that as well that explains how and why he had some of the weakest borders in U.S. history. So here, he's definitely a cheat. He's lying, and he knows he's lying.
Yet, Mr. President, Iran was the closest to developing weapons-grade uranium after you ripped up the nuclear deal because there were no guardrails in place.
They were developing it during the nuclear deal.
Right.
You don't know that? Iran, when Obama signed that stupid deal where he paid them billions and billions of dollars, he thought he could bribe them. Listen to me. They were developing a nuclear weapon. That's how they got there. They got all of this uranium during Obama. You know that, don't you? Well, that's how they got there. Don't say this. They got there. They developed it during the Barack Hussein Obama, during his administration.
And they've escalated their development after the deal was wrapped up.
They didn't escalate anything.
This is wild because none of this makes sense. If they were developing it under Obama, which was 8 years, they would have had a nuclear bomb. It only took them about 2 to 3 years once Trump told them that they no longer had to stick to this thing to get to a point where they were able to make a nuclear bomb. So had they been doing it for the 8 years under Obama, they would have had a nuclear bomb within 2 years of under Obama, because it only took them 2 to 3 years under Trump to be able to develop one. So if he was correct, then they would have had already many, many nuclear bombs. I just think he doesn't understand how this stuff works. So I think he's trying to manipulate people here, but I truly think that he doesn't understand how any of this works. He doesn't understand the timelines at all. And so I think in this case, he's a chump.
Let's talk about the economy. I want to talk about the economy.
If I didn't go in there with the B-2 bombers, they would right now have a nuclear weapon, and it could be that half of the world would be eradicated.
Let me ask you about the economy.
I mean, here he goes again saying a nuclear weapon and it could destroy half of the world. That's 100% him fear-mongering. This is him trying, and his people respond very well to fear. Like, we do a lot of research on this, and MAGA supporters in particular are very susceptible to fear tactics. They're an easily frightened group of people. And he's well aware of this because he's sent all this information that the more afraid he can keep them, the more subservient they'll be. So he's 100% trying to make them afraid by saying that. But I do also think that he might think that a nuclear bomb could destroy half the world. I mean, his understanding of these things is so rudimentary. It's bizarre. I mean, we know that 2 bombs had been dropped in Japan, and Japan's a little tiny island, and it's basically fine. His understanding of things just blows my mind. Again, I'm going to call this section, he's half a chump and half a cheat.
What they do is when they raise interest rates, they try and kill success. I don't want to kill success. We should actually lower interest rates. Now, if inflation comes, and, you know, people live with inflation. But if inflation comes, what happens is you stamp it out. But success can kill inflation, just like higher interest rates. What they do now is, like, we had great job numbers. You agree, right?
They beat expectations.
Not expectations, like 3 times. Okay, but you ready? What do? They say, oh, let's raise interest rates. It's the wrong thing to do. I would like to see rates get lower, because we could build this into the greatest machine that the world has ever seen. But you can't do that when everybody immediately raises interest rates. So we had great job numbers. We're doing great. You know, we're building more factories. We have more money coming into our country right now from other countries and people than ever before. Wait a minute. What happens? I don't want to just kill it with high interest rates. Growth is the greatest thing you can have. And growth does not cause inflation.
Holy cow. His lack of understanding of financial situations is astounding. Like, isn't he? I mean, I know he's he's got a history of failed businesses and bankruptcies and everything. But how can he be a full-grown adult and still have and be in business and still have this poor of an understanding of how finances work? We have a video on why you, and I know that most people probably have no idea why you raise or lower interest rates. So watch the video. We explain that. But it's bizarre to me that he has no understanding of how that works. But he did also say that we're getting the most money from foreign countries, and she was gonna interject, but he does this "excuse me" thing. In 2024, the U.S. took in $278.8 billion from foreign investments. For a comparison, in 2015, under Obama, it was 467.6. So, you're getting close to twice as much under Obama than it was under Trump. And in his mind, he thinks that almost half the amount is the greatest of all time. And again, I'm not really sure if he's just reading memes on Twitter that say that, and then he just believes it, or if he knows what these numbers are and he's trying to lie. My guess in this case is he's a chump. I think he read that on a meme and he's just repeating it. He falls for a lot of scams very easily. A lot of the stuff that we create, we get him to say on national TV. And when you're in this industry, you actually get paid a lot of money if you can have the president repeat your fake story or retweet your fake story. Any celebrities that retweet the stuff that a marketing agency pays you to create, if you get somebody with a ton of followers to retweet it or share it, you get paid a ton of money for that. So, and Trump is by far the easiest president to get to share fake information. I mean, he just looks at it and clicks share. So I think in this case, he's a chump. I think he's being taken advantage of.
Do you think anyone who attacked police officers on January 6th should get taxpayer money?
I wouldn't be inclined to say so, but I have to see it. I can tell you this, 97% of those people, you look at them, the FBI or whoever it was, because you had a lot of crooked cops, you had dirty cops. Comey was a dirty cop.
Well,
a guy like Bolton was a dirty cop.
But there's no evidence.
Wait a minute. You think Comey was a straight cop?
People who pleaded guilty to assaulting police
Comey
officers.
was a dirty cop.
No, but
they
the
had
people
FBI,
who assaulted police
listen
officers.
to me. They had FBI agents ushering them into the building. They had FBI go into the building. Those people walking around, they're looking, oh, isn't this nice? They weren't in. They were being ushered into the building.
Sir. There's no evidence.
You had a bunch of dirty cops, and frankly, what they did was weaponization of our government.
But sir, there's no evidence of that. More than 1,000 people.
There's none. You know what you do? Try looking at the tapes one time.
Would you take it off the table?
Look at the tapes one time.
But 100.
Okay, so here he's shifting the burden of proof. And this is a very common logical fallacy. And this happens a lot when people can't prove their argument, and because he has no evidence to support his argument. So since he can't come up with the evidence, what he says is, you go find the evidence to prove I'm correct, and that proves that I'm correct. Like, if he was correct, he'd have proof of it. But when you don't, you tell the other person to go out and find the proof, and then that will prove it. It's a very weird thing, but it basically comes down to, like, if someone wants to say the aliens built the pyramids and you don't have proof of that, then you just say, oh, well, prove they didn't do it then. And you only do this when you don't have evidence yourself. So he's definitely being a cheat here. And he's constantly putting himself down and doesn't realize it. Like, he's talking about how bad the justice system was for the January 6th, and that all these cops were crooked, and then the FBI director was crooked. But this was at the end of his term of presidency. So he's saying for the 4 years he was president, he allowed all this crookedness to happen. Like, he was so bad at his job that he allowed that's his job to stop this. It's like if you were the CEO of a company for 4 years, and at the end of the 4 years, you talk about how bad the employees were and the people working for you were, but that's your job to make them better. So all he's really doing by saying this is saying that whoever was in charge at the time was doing a terrible job of being in charge, and he's the person in charge. So I just don't think he understands things when he's saying it. He so quickly wants to make excuses that he doesn't understand that he's putting himself down half the time.
72 people did plead guilty to assaulting police officers.
You know why they pled guilty?
Should they be exempt?
Because they told they were going to jail for 15 years if they didn't.
Should they?
They pled guilty because they were frightened. They went down. They were ushered into a building. Many of them were arrested without even going into the building.
You'd be okay with them receiving taxpayer dollars?
The people were destroyed by dirty cops and by weaponization. Many of those people should be compensated. Now, with that being said, as I understand it, the weaponization fund was going to set up a group of people, people that could be picked by anybody, fair people, smart people, and they will go on an individual case basis.
Okay.
Now, I don't know what's going to happen with the weaponization fund. I love the idea because people like you, the fake, dirty press, the crooked press, people like stupid Biden, he's not smart enough to know what's going on, but people that surrounded him, surrounded his beautiful, resolute desk in the Oval Office, what they did to the lives of people, they destroyed people. They sent people to jail who did nothing wrong.
All right, just to be very clear, there's no evidence of what you're saying, but let me ask you about Todd Blanche.
Listen to me.
Let's talk
There's
about Todd
tremendous
Blanche.
evidence. There's nothing but
not been
evidence. The
presented
election
in a
was
court of
rigged.
law.
It was a dirty election.
Mr.
And it's
President,
happening again right now in California.
You've never presented evidence.
It's happening
that the
right
2020
now in
election
California.
was rigged.
Right now, it's look at what's
Where's
happening
the
in
evidence
California.
to that?
It's
The
4
Republicans
days.
are doing well in
California. It's no, they're not. They're dropping fast because it's a rigged election. Let me tell you, it's 4 days, and they aren't even close to coming up with.
That's how they count
You know
the
why
votes
they're doing
in
that?
California.
Because they're cheating on the election.
What? Do you have evidence to support
all
that?
I have to do is look. All I have to do is look.
That's not evidence.
And I listen to people, and let's see what happens.
Okay, this is very telling here. Like when he said, all you have to do is look. That's something that people with high RWA, like we have a scale that we use to let us know how easy someone is to manipulate, how easy they are to be fooled. And what they'll say a lot of times is just go look. They want to trust their eyes, which means you can show them anything, right? If you're a magician, you saw a woman in half and you saw it with your eyes, therefore it happened. Those are the easiest people to manipulate. But he also said he listens to what people say, which means he's definitely getting he's admitting that he's just repeating what someone told him. Which means I could tell him that this was happening and he's going to believe it just because I told him that. And that's a very dangerous position for anybody to be in. You should make that person give you evidence. If someone makes a claim and they say, look, the election was rigged, you don't just say, oh, well, you said it, so I believe you. You say, okay, present me with evidence. And when that person can't present you with evidence, then you can't assume they're correct. In fact, you have to assume that they're incorrect. If someone doesn't have evidence to support their claim, that's probably because their claim is incorrect. But the fact that he says, I listen to other people or I hear what other people tell me, that's very disturbing. That's one of the, if in my work, if we see someone say that on social media or anything like that, anybody who likes or shares anything that's like, trust your eyes, believe it because you were told it. These people are always then the most easy people to manipulate. And just him saying that one phrase makes me very concerned for him and makes me think that he's a very easy person to manipulate. And so far in this case, I think he's probably a chump. I think someone's misleading him here.
Sir, that's not evidence.
Do you think it's appropriate?
That's how they count the votes in
Do you
California.
think it's appropriate that they have an election and 5 days later they're nowhere close to picking a winner?
State and local officials acknowledge they are slow. They're urging.
No, they're crooked.
They're urging the votes to be counted quickly. That's how they vote in California.
They're crooked, just like you're crooked. Your press is crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked.
To be fair, I'm not crooked, but let's
Really?
Let's
Well,
continue.
you play right into their hands. Then.
Let's continue.
You're either crooked or you're stupid. You play
continue.
right into their hands with this rap. You know that these elections are rigged. Your network knows that they're rigged. You know that I won an election in a landslide, and I got 94% bad press.
But Mr. President,
you know why I
you've
got
never
that?
presented
Because you have no
evidence.
credibility.
But you've never presented evidence that it was rigged. Let's keep talking about, I want to talk about Todd
You
Blanche.
have more evidence. There's more evidence than ever presented.
Let's talk
Your
about
elections
you
in
went
this
to
country.
court.
We're like a third world country.
But sir,
And whoa, there it is again. The pronouns. Your elections in this country are crooked. That someone's telling him that. Someone is telling him your elections in your country are crooked. And he's repeating what he was told. So who's telling him that your elections, that's someone who isn't an American saying it to him. So is it like Putin telling him that? Is it Xi telling him that? Who is telling him? It has to be a foreigner, right? Because that's why they're saying you. And he, like, his brain isn't really understanding that he's just repeating verbatim what someone told him. That's why he's saying your elections in your country are crooked. Like that wording came from a foreigner and he's repeating it. I mean, that's absolutely evidence right there that someone from a foreign nation is telling him these things and he's repeating them. And again, he doesn't realize that he's making fun of himself. He said that the elections are crooked, and then he said that I won in a landslide. I mean, if you win a sporting event and then you say later that the sporting event was rigged and it was rigged to make whoever won, and you're the team that won, we're going to assume that you're admitting that you cheated in order to win. So when he says these elections are rigged and I won them in a landslide, he's essentially saying that he rigged the elections and that's why he won in a landslide. And someone from another country is getting him to say this, and that's why he's using the word your. And that's a very easy way to tell if someone's repeating propaganda, because they'll mess their pronouns up. If it's my thought, I say me, right? But if it's a thought that came from someone else, I'll use the wrong pronoun. This is something very simple that you can look for when people are misusing the pronoun and you're speaking in third person rather than in first person, because that's what you were told.
Your elections are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked, and so is ABC and CBS and CNN.
But Mr. President,
you're one-sided crooked networks. All right, let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President, let's please. I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
I've sat in the rain with you.
I know.
I've sat in the rain with you
to
for an hour,
Wisconsin.
on and off in the rain, and I've given you enough time. You ought to straighten out your press, because you know what?
Mr.
A
President,
country can never be great with a dishonest
Listen,
press.
we
Come on,
traveled
let's go.
all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
I mean, the temper tantrum here is very obvious to know why he does that. This is what people do when they know they've lost an argument. That, I think, you don't need a psychology degree to know that one. This is something typical. Children do this. You know, you've done this with people. People have done this with you. That's a very common tactic. But notice again that he said that the United States has dishonest press. And then he also says that a nation can't be a great nation as long as they have a dishonest press. So in essence, he's saying the United States isn't a great nation currently. So again, this wording is coming from someone else. I'm sure of it. Somebody, some foreign person is telling him that the United States is a terrible nation because of all these different reasons, and he is absorbing it and then repeating it. And it's a good tactic, because if you took like the CEO of Apple and you convinced that guy that all of Apple's products were terrible, and you know, Apple's the most successful company like in the world, right? But certainly in the United States. But if you wanted to infiltrate them, if you were a competitor, you could if you could convince their CEO that Apple's the worst company and all their products are terrible, what's that CEO going to do? He's going to upset how that company's run. He's going to be like, let's stop making all these products that we're making and let's redraw everything. Let's make these new products. Let's do this differently. And because you're already the most successful company in the world, any change that you have is more than likely going to decrease your success. Right? Because if you're already at the tippy top, there's pretty much only one way to go. So the US is the most successful nation in the world, and someone has him convinced that everything that we're doing is wrong so that he will do everything differently, knowing that that has a very high percentage of making the US do worse, since they're already doing the best of any nation on the planet. Upsetting that system is more than likely going to cause success to decrease. Someone is manipulating him. Someone is tricking him into thinking the United States is terrible, which again is super dangerous. Think about it. If I took over Apple and I went in and I'm like, we're going to get rid of everything we're doing, we're going to start from the ground up again, that company would have a very high probability of collapsing. This is a very typical manipulation tactic. This is very common in psychological warfare. It's called confidence sabotage. And what you do is Arnold Schwarzenegger was the king of this. He would get in the heads of his competitors who might have been better than him and convince them that they were doing everything wrong. And then it gets you to start second guessing everything that you're doing. And that's what Trump is doing, right? He wants to change everything about the way the US is run. He believes so vehemently that the United States is such a terribly run nation that it needs to be completely overhauled. And we need to change everything, despite being the most successful nation in the world, which causes you to eventually fail at everything that you're doing. Someone is definitely using confidence sabotage techniques in a version of psychological warfare with Trump, and he's falling for it. And all of the signs are there. He's putting down his own country. He's saying that we've never been great, that we're currently not great, that we can never be great. And he's using the wrong pronouns. So overall, I'm going to say he's a chump. He's being manipulated. Hey, thanks for watching. Understanding the psychology behind scams changes everything. If you want more, be sure to like and subscribe. What did you think? Do you agree or disagree? And if there are any topics you would like to see us cover, be sure to leave them in the comments.